My name is Sarah, and I'm 35 years old. I stood frozen in my childhood home's living room as my parents delivered their bombshell. 20 years of sacrifices, working 3 jobs through college, sending them every spare penny to save this house from foreclosure. $650,000 of my blood and sweat. And now they sat there, holding hands, telling me they'd already signed the deed over to my sister Emma, who hadn't visited in 5 years. Before I share what happened next, I'm curious, where are you watching from today? If you've ever felt betrayed by family or wondered if blood really makes someone family, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. This journey will show you why sometimes the most toxic gift someone can give you is revealing their true colors. Let's dive into how 20 years of sacrifice became my unexpected path to freedom. The Martinez family had lived in our San Francisco Victorian house for 3 generations. My great-grandfather built it with his own hands after immigrating from Mexico in the 1920s. That house wasn't just walls and floors, it was our family's legacy, holding memories of quinceañeras, Christmas tamales, and Sunday dinners that stretched late into the evening. Growing up, I understood this house represented everything our family had achieved in America. I was the older daughter, the responsible one who helped with homework, cooked dinner when mom worked late, and made sure Emma had her lunch money. Teachers called me mature for my age, but looking back, I was just a child raising another child while our parents worked multiple jobs to keep afloat. Emma, 3 years younger, lived in a different reality. Where I saw struggle, she saw adventure. Where I felt responsibility, she felt freedom. Our parents treated her like spun glass, fragile and precious, while I was the sturdy oak expected to weather every storm. The differences in how our parents treated us became more pronounced as we grew. When I got straight A's, they'd nod and say that's what they expected. When Emma managed a B-, they threw a celebration dinner. I told myself it didn't matter, that being reliable was its own reward. But late at night, writing in my journal, I'd wonder why my best was never good enough to earn what Emma got just for existing. Then 2008 hit like a tsunami. Dad's construction business, built over 20 years of 16-hour days, crumbled when the housing market collapsed. His clients couldn't pay, projects stalled, and within 6 months, he went from employing 15 men to selling his tools to buy groceries. Mom lost her teaching position when the district made cuts. I watched my proud father age 10 years in 10 months, his shoulders bent under the weight of failure he didn't deserve. The foreclosure notice came on a Tuesday. I was 15, doing homework at the kitchen table when Mom opened the letter. Her face went white as paper, hands shaking as she passed it to Dad. 3 months behind on mortgage payments. 90 days to pay or lose everything. Emma was 12, upset because she couldn't get the new iPhone. I was calculating how many hours I could work at the local grocery store while still maintaining my grades for college scholarships. That night changed everything. While Emma complained about potentially moving to a smaller place, I made a promise to myself and my parents. This house would not leave our family. Not on my watch. I started working at Roberto's Market the next week, every day after school and all weekend. 4-hour shifts became 6-hour shifts. Minimum wage felt like a fortune when I handed my entire paycheck to my parents each week. College should have been my escape route, but it became another venue for sacrifice. I earned a full scholarship to UC Berkeley for academics, but that only covered tuition. Books, housing, food, all of that required money. So I worked 3 jobs, tutoring in the morning, campus library in the afternoon, waitressing until 2 a.m. at a 24-hour diner. My roommate partied on Friday nights, while I served drunk students their pancakes and collected tips that went straight to my parents' mortgage fund. Emma went to community college for exactly 1 semester before deciding education wasn't for her. She moved to Vegas with her boyfriend, posting Instagram photos from pool parties, while I calculated how many extra shifts would cover the latest mortgage payment. When I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in finance, Emma didn't even call. My parents made excuses. She was finding herself. She was young. She needed space to grow. My first job offer came from Goldman Sachs. $80,000 starting salary plus bonuses, more money than anyone in our family had ever made. I should have been shopping for professional clothes and a decent apartment. Instead, I signed over my entire $20,000 signing bonus to my parents. The gratitude in their eyes made every sacrifice worth it. Dad cried. Mom held my hands and promised they'd never forget what I was doing for our family. But even then, warning signs flickered like faulty streetlights. When Emma called needing money for a business opportunity that was clearly a pyramid scheme, my parents sent her $5,000, money I'd given them for the mortgage. When I protested, Mom said family helps family, and Emma was still finding her path. When I asked why my path, the one paved with exhaustion and sacrifice, wasn't worth the same support, they called me selfish for keeping score. The pattern established itself like grooves in a record. I worked 100-hour weeks in investment banking, surviving on 4 hours of sleep and vending machine coffee. Every bonus went to the mortgage. Every raise meant I could send more home. Meanwhile, Emma drifted from Vegas to Los Angeles to San Diego, each move accompanied by requests for security deposits and moving expenses that my parents somehow always managed to provide. My career in investment banking was supposed to be a launching pad to wealth and success. Instead, it became a gilded cage where I generated money for everyone except myself. The irony wasn't lost on me. I helped multi-million-dollar deals close while living in a 400-square-foot studio apartment in the Tenderloin, the cheapest rent I could find in San Francisco. My colleagues assumed I was aggressively saving to buy property. They had no idea every penny went to save property I'd never own. Dating became a casualty of my commitment to family. James was first, a software engineer who couldn't understand why I canceled our vacation to Hawaii because my parents needed an emergency payment. He said I was enabling them, that healthy boundaries were necessary. I told him he didn't understand family loyalty. We lasted 6 months before he walked away, shaking his head at my refusal to prioritize our future over my parents' present. Then came Michael, a fellow analyst who found my dedication admirable until it meant missing his sister's wedding because I'd picked up extra consulting work to cover property taxes. The final straw was when I spent our anniversary working because the quarterly bonus would complete that month's payment. He left a note saying he couldn't compete with ghosts of obligation. I told myself he was weak, that real love meant understanding sacrifice. David lasted the longest, 2 years of patience before breaking. He was there the night I collapsed at my desk, working through pneumonia, because taking sick days might affect my performance review and thus my bonus. The hospital kept me for 3 days, pumping antibiotics and lecturing about stress-induced immune system failure. David held my hand, begged me to slow down, to let my parents figure out their own situation. When I returned to work the day after discharge, he packed his things. His parting words still echo, "You're not saving your family, Sarah. You're drowning with them." My health became collateral damage in the war to save the house. Beyond the pneumonia, there were stress migraines that left me vomiting in office bathrooms, chronic insomnia that had me hallucinating during presentations, and a pinched nerve from hunching over spreadsheets that required physical therapy I couldn't afford time for. HR mandated I take vacation days, so I used them to do freelance consulting, turning what should have been recovery into more revenue. The London opportunity arrived like a cruel joke from the universe. Barclays offered to triple my salary, provide housing, and fast-track me to managing director. It was everything I'd worked toward, a chance to finally build something for myself while still helping my parents. But the timing coincided with Dad's heart scare, a minor attack that doctors said was stress-related. Mom called sobbing, saying she couldn't handle the mortgage paperwork alone, that she needed me nearby. I declined Barclays and stayed, watching my replacement board the plane to my dream future. Emma's communication pattern was predictable as California earthquakes. Silence for months, then a crisis call needing immediate funds. Failed businesses, broken leases, toxic relationships, always someone else's fault, always requiring financial rescue. She'd learned our parents' manipulation playbook perfectly. The calls came at night when I was exhausted, voice trembling with tears about being homeless or hungry. I'd wire money, she'd disappear, and the cycle would repeat. What I didn't know until later was that my parents supplemented my mortgage payments with additional funds for Emma. While I lived on ramen and coffee, they sent her monthly allowances from their Social Security, money that should have gone to medications or groceries. When I discovered this, the betrayal cut deeper than any scalpel. They were literally choosing her comfort over their own health, funded by my sacrifice. My journal from those years reads like a descent into madness. Entries calculating payment schedules mixed with increasingly desperate questions. Why am I not enough? When will it be my turn? How much more can I give? The math was simple: 500,000 paid, 150,000 to go. 5 more years at my current pace. I was 30, feeling 50, watching friends post engagement photos and baby announcements while I posted nothing because my life was an endless cycle of work and payment. Melissa saw what I couldn't or wouldn't. My best friend since college, she'd watched my transformation from ambitious graduate to hollowed-out ATM. She staged interventions over wine, showing me spreadsheets of what I could have accumulated investing my money instead of pouring it into an emotional black hole. She'd pull up photos from college, pointing out the light in my eyes that had long since dimmed. They're vampires, she'd say. Emotional, financial vampires who've convinced you that bleeding for them is love. But I was too deep in the fog of obligation to see clearly. Every payment felt like progress, every thank you from my parents like validation. I told myself this was temporary, that once the house was secure, I'd finally start living. I created elaborate fantasies about my future, traveling to places I'd only seen in airport magazines, dating someone who understood boundaries because I'd finally have some, maybe even buying my own little condo where no one could take away what I'd earned. The payment schedule became my religion. First of each month. $4,500 for principal and interest. 15th, property taxes and insurance. Throughout, any extra toward principal reduction. I automated everything, watching my bank account fill and empty like lungs that never held breath long enough to feel alive. Coworkers bought Teslas while I rode the bus. They invested in startups while I invested in a promise that love meant sacrifice. Friends stopped inviting me to things that cost money, knowing I'd decline. My social circle shrank to Melissa and work colleagues who understood that drinks meant one beer nursed for hours. I became an expert at free entertainment, library books, hiking trails, window shopping in neighborhoods I'd never afford. The city sparkled around me, full of experiences just out of reach, while I counted days until the next payment cleared. My 30th birthday passed with a cupcake at my desk and a card from my parents thanking me for being such a good daughter. Emma didn't call. She was in Cabo with her latest boyfriend, posting beach photos with captions about living her best life. I stared at those photos during my 15-minute lunch break, wondering what my best life might have looked like if I'd chosen myself even once. The last $50,000 represented everything I'd managed to save beyond the mortgage payments. My emergency fund, built through years of skipping meals, wearing shoes until they fell apart, and treating a coffee shop visit like a luxury vacation. Touching that money felt like reaching into my own chest, but the finish line beckoned. 5 years ahead of schedule, we would own the house free and clear. The relief would be worth the risk. I planned the final payment like a military operation. Wire transfer scheduled, documentation prepared, even a photographer booked to capture the moment we burned the mortgage papers. The irony of spending money on a photographer when I denied myself so much didn't escape me, but this moment deserved commemoration. 20 years of sacrifice crystallized into one glorious day of freedom. The week before the final payment, life shifted like tectonic plates. Emma appeared at our parents' house unannounced, first time in 5 years. She looked different, designer clothes, professional makeup, and ease that spoke of comfort I'd never known. Her greeting to me was casual, as if she'd been gone 5 days instead of 5 years. No acknowledgement of missed birthdays, ignored calls, or the weight I'd carried alone. My parents transformed in her presence. Mom cooked elaborate meals, Dad's laughter returned, and they both glowed like she was visiting royalty. They didn't ask where she'd been or why she'd stayed away. Instead, they hung on her every word about her new life, her business ventures, her connections. When she mentioned her boyfriend Marcus, a real estate attorney, they exchanged glances I couldn't interpret. Red flags waved like a parade, but I was too focused on the finish line to pay attention. Whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Documents quickly shuffled away when I appeared. Emma and Marcus huddled over laptops, speaking in legal terms that made my financial brain itch with suspicion. When I asked about it, Emma laughed and said I worried too much, that some people built instead of just paying for others' building. The final payment cleared on a Thursday morning. I watched the confirmation screen through tears, 20 years of exhaustion and dedication reduced to a simple transaction complete. The mortgage company would send the deed release within 10 business days. I screenshot everything, backed it up in 3 places, and finally allowed myself to imagine life without this monthly anchor dragging me under. My parents' reaction felt muted, like I'd told them about a decent restaurant instead of completing a 2-decade marathon. They thanked me, of course, but their eyes kept drifting to Emma, who spent the moment texting on her phone. When I suggested we celebrate at their favorite restaurant, they said they were tired, maybe another time. The champagne I'd bought sat unopened while Emma regaled them with stories about Marcus's successful practice. I returned to my studio apartment that night feeling hollow instead of triumphant. Melissa called, wanting to celebrate, but I couldn't shake the sensation of standing at the edge of a cliff, unable to see the ground below. Something fundamental had shifted in my family's dynamic, but I couldn't name it. The finish line I'd sacrificed everything to reach suddenly felt like the starting point of something worse. 3 days later, my parents called a family meeting. Their voices carried false cheer that set my nerves jangling. "Just a little paperwork to discuss," Mom said. "Nothing important, but we need everyone there." The casualness felt rehearsed, like lines in a play they'd practiced. I arrived to find Marcus already present, briefcase open, documents spread across the dining table where we'd shared thousands of meals. Emma wore the smile of someone holding a winning lottery ticket. She'd positioned herself between our parents, one hand on each of their shoulders, the picture of a devoted daughter. The staging was perfect, them against me, united in whatever came next. Marcus stood as I entered, extending a hand with the practiced smile of someone who enjoyed delivering bad news to people who deserved it. "Sarah," he began, voice smooth as oil, "your parents have asked me to help clarify some legal matters regarding the property transfer." The words "property transfer" hit like ice water. I looked at my parents, searching for explanation in faces that suddenly wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom studied her hands. Dad stared at a family photo on the wall. One where Emma and I were children, before everything went wrong. "What property transfer?" My voice came out steady despite the earthquake in my chest. "I just paid off the mortgage. The deed release is coming to you next week." Emma's smile widened. Marcus shuffled papers with theatrical importance. My parents seemed to age in real time, shrinking into themselves as the moment they'd planned arrived on the wings of my ignorance. "The property has already been transferred," Marcus announced with the casual cruelty of someone discussing weather. "Your parents executed a quitclaim deed last week, transferring full ownership to Emma. It's all completely legal and finalized." He slid documents across the table like a blackjack dealer revealing a winning hand. There it was in black and white, my childhood home, my 20-year sacrifice, now belonged to my sister who couldn't even spell sacrifice. The room tilted. I gripped the table edge, certain I was having a stroke. This wasn't possible. I'd paid $650,000. I had receipts, bank statements, 20 years of evidence that this house was bought with my blood. But Emma's name stared back from the deed, mocking every skipped meal, every canceled date, every dream deferred for this moment that was never meant to be mine. "You're confused," I managed, voice foreign to my own ears. "I paid the mortgage. Every payment for 20 years. You can't just give away what I paid for." But even as I spoke, the legal truth crystallized. I'd paid their mortgage, not mine. The deed had always been in their names, making every payment a gift, not an investment. 20 years of financial expertise, and I'd made the most amateur mistake possible, trusting family to honor unwritten contracts. My mother finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. "Emma needs stability," she whispered. "She's pregnant. A baby needs a proper home." The words landed like punches. Emma, pregnant. Emma, who'd never held a job longer than 6 months. Emma, who'd spent 2 decades running from responsibility. She would raise a child in the house I'd saved, while I returned to my studio apartment, now truly homeless in every sense that mattered. And what about what I needed? The question erupted from someplace primal. What about 20 years of stability I never had because every penny went here? What about the children I didn't have because I couldn't afford them? What about my life, Mom? When does that matter? My voice rose with each question, 20 years of suppressed rage finally finding oxygen. Marcus stepped back, but Emma's smile never wavered. My father cleared his throat, still avoiding my eyes. "You're successful," he mumbled. "You have a good job, education. Emma's never had your advantages. We have to think about the grandchild." The reasoning was so backwards it almost made sense. Punish the successful child, reward the failure. Make the responsible one pay for being responsible. The logic of dysfunction, dressed up as parental wisdom. My advantages? I laughed, but it came out like breaking glass. "You mean working 3 jobs through college while Emma partied? You mean living in a closet while she traveled? You mean destroying my health, losing every relationship, giving up every opportunity? Those advantages?" My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, showing them my banking app. "See this? Nothing. I have nothing because I gave you everything. And you gave it to her." Emma finally spoke, voice dripping false sympathy. "Don't be dramatic, Sarah. You'll bounce back. You always do. That's what you're good at, surviving. I'm good at living." She rubbed her still flat stomach performatively. "And now I'm good at giving Mom and Dad what they really want. A grandchild who'll actually be around, not too busy working to visit." The cruelty was breathtaking in its precision. Every word chosen to maximize damage, to twist the knife she'd been sharpening for 20 years. And my parents sat there, nodding along, as if her ability to get pregnant somehow erased 2 decades of abandonment. As if my sacrifice was worth less than her fertility. As if love could be measured in chromosomes instead of consistency. "Get out of my house," I said quietly, then louder when no one moved. "Get out of my house." But it wasn't my house. It had never been my house. The papers in Marcus's hands proved that beyond doubt. Emma laughed, actually laughed, and said, "I think you're confused about whose house this is. But don't worry, you're welcome to visit. Maybe babysit sometimes. Free of charge, of course. Family helps family, right?" Marcus packed his briefcase with satisfied efficiency. "If you have any questions about the legality of the transfer, I'd be happy to explain," he offered. "Though I should warn you, challenging this would be expensive and futile. Your parents were well within their rights. Money given freely creates no obligation for reciprocity. That's basic contract law." He handed me his card, a final insult. "In case you need representation for other matters." I stood there, card in hand, watching my family realign around Emma like iron filings to a magnet. Mom moved to hug me, but I stepped back, her arms closing on air. "Don't," I said. "Don't you dare touch me. Don't you dare cry. Don't you dare ask for forgiveness you haven't earned and don't deserve. You want to know what you've done? You've killed your daughter. The one who loved you, who sacrificed for you, who would have done anything for you. She's dead. You killed her." "Sarah, please." Dad finally found his voice. "Try to understand. We love you both equally." The lie was so transparent it was almost funny. 20 years of evidence to the contrary, and he still expected me to swallow it. "We just want what's best for everyone. Once you calm down, you'll see this is better. You'll build your own success. Emma needs our help." "One more thing," Emma added, examining her manicure. "The property taxes are due next month. Mom and Dad can't afford them on Social Security. Since you're so good with money, maybe you could help out? For old time's sake. The audacity was breathtaking. She'd stolen my future and now wanted me to pay for the privilege. My parents looked hopeful, as if this was reasonable, as if I was an ATM that just needed the right code to keep dispensing. I walked to the mantel where family photos chronicled our lives. Pictures of smiling Christmases, graduations, birthdays. All fake, all hiding the rot beneath. I picked up one from my college graduation, my parents flanking me, proud smiles for the camera. I'd thought their pride was real. Now I knew it was relief. They'd raised their meal ticket successfully. I'm done, I announced, setting the photo face down. With all of you. This is the last time you'll see me. When you're old, when you're sick, when you need someone to care, remember this moment. Remember that you had a daughter who would have died for you, and you sold her for a grandchild who doesn't even exist yet. I hope Emma's baby is worth losing me forever. I walked out of my childhood home for the last time, their voices calling behind me. Mom wailed about family, Dad muttered about overreactions, Emma laughed about dramatics. Marcus said something about emotional decision-making. But I was already gone, already dead to them, already transforming into something they'd never recognize, someone who chose herself. The drive back to my apartment happened in a blackout state. Somehow I navigated San Francisco traffic, while my mind replayed 20 years of manipulation on fast forward. Every sacrifice recontextualized as stupidity. Every thank you revealed as mockery. Every promise exposed as premeditation. By the time I reached my building, I was shaking so violently I couldn't get the key in the lock. Inside my 400-square-foot studio, the walls closed in like a trash compactor. This was it. The sum total of 20 years of 100-hour weeks. A Murphy bed, a hot plate, a bathroom so small I could touch both walls simultaneously. I'd told myself it was temporary, just until the house was paid off. Now it was permanent, a prison cell I'd funded myself while building my sister a palace. The rage came in waves, each one threatening to drown me. I destroyed everything breakable first. Dishes, glasses, the frame holding my investment banking certification. Then furniture, throwing my second-hand chair against the wall until it splintered. I ripped clothes, shredded papers, screamed until my throat went raw. The neighbors called the landlord, but I couldn't stop. 20 years of suppressed emotion demanded its due. Melissa found me 3 hours later, sitting in the wreckage like a bombing survivor. She'd come after I sent a series of increasingly unhinged texts, ending with "they gave it to Emma" repeated 17 times. She took one look at the destruction, at my bleeding hands from broken glass, and called in sick to work. "Okay," she said, pulling me into her arms. "Okay, sweetie. We're going to get through this." But I couldn't see through anything. The next days blurred together in a haze of calling in sick, not eating, not sleeping, just staring at the ceiling, running calculations. $650,000 over 20 years. With compound interest, I could have had $2 million. I could have owned my own house, traveled the world, started a business. Instead, I had nothing but rage and a sister living in my sacrifice. Work noticed my absence, of course. Investment banking doesn't tolerate weakness. My managing director called personally, voice stern with warning. "Sarah, I don't know what's going on, but you need to get it together. You're on the Parker Industries deal. The client specifically requested you. If you're not here tomorrow, I'll have to reassign it." The Parker deal was worth millions in commission. 3 months ago, I would have crawled to work half dead for it. Now I hung up mid-sentence. The truth started emerging through texts from cousins, aunts, family members I'd forgotten existed. Emma had been visiting for months, maybe years, timing her arrivals for when I was at work. She'd been planting seeds, working on our parents, promising them access to grandchildren if they proved their loyalty. The pregnancy story evolved. Sometimes she was trying, sometimes she was newly pregnant, sometimes planning for the future. The details didn't matter, only the manipulation. My parents, desperate for the grandchild I'd never provided because I was too busy providing everything else, fell for it completely. They'd started planning the transfer 2 years ago, consulting lawyers to ensure I had no claim. Every thank you during that time was a lie. Every expression of gratitude was performance. They'd known they were stealing from me and did it anyway, justified by Emma's empty promises and their own twisted logic. My health collapsed like everything else. The stress triggered migraines that lasted days, leaving me crawling to the bathroom to vomit. My hair fell out in clumps. I dropped 20 pounds I couldn't afford to lose. Melissa forced me to see a doctor who prescribed antidepressants and warned about stress-induced cardiac events. "You're 35 with the cardiovascular system of someone twice your age," he said. "Whatever's causing this stress needs to stop, or you'll be dead by 40. Rock bottom came on a Tuesday night. I stood on the roof of my office building, 30 floors above Montgomery Street. Not planning anything, just standing there, understanding why people made certain choices. The city sparkled below, beautiful and cold, full of people living lives I'd never have. The wind whipped my hair, and for a moment, I felt weightless, free from the crushing debt of being the good daughter. My phone rang. Melissa, because of course she'd installed a tracking app after finding me in the wreckage. "Don't you dare," she said without preamble. "Don't you fucking dare let them win like this." "Where are you?" I told her, and she stayed on the line during the longest 40 minutes of my life while she raced through traffic. "They killed the old Sarah," she said. "Fine. She was too good for this world anyway. But you get to decide who comes next." She found me still standing at the edge, paralyzed between ending and beginning. "You know what the best revenge is?" she asked, pulling me back. "Living well. Success. Showing them exactly what they threw away. You want to jump? Jump into a new life. Leave them behind in their house of lies and see how long it takes to crumble." Her words pierced the fog. I had two choices, destruction or reconstruction. That night, I made a decision. If they'd killed the daughter who sacrificed everything, I'd become someone who sacrificed nothing. If they wanted Emma's life over mine, I'd make sure they choked on that choice. But first, I needed information. If 20 years in finance had taught me anything, it was that information was power, and power was everything. I hired a private investigator the next day, using my credit card because my savings were gone. James Chin came highly recommended for corporate espionage, but he took personal cases when they interested him. Mine fascinated him. "Family financial abuse on this scale," he whistled. "That's next level. Give me 2 weeks. I'll find everything." His retainer cost more than I had, but Melissa lent me the money. "Consider it an investment in your revenge," she said. The next morning, I returned to work like nothing had happened. My managing director raised an eyebrow at my appearance, hollow eyes, sharp cheekbones from weight loss, but said nothing when I dove into the Parker deal with manic intensity. I channeled every ounce of rage into Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations, working with a fury that impressed and frightened my colleagues. "Whatever lit a fire under you, keep it burning," my MD said after I caught a $10 million error others had missed. "This is the Sarah we hired." He had no idea the fire was hatred pure and simple, that I was running on revenge fantasies and espresso, that every successful deal was a brick in the wall I was building between my old life and whatever came next. Sleep became optional, food purely functional. I existed on a diet of coffee, protein bars, and visualization exercises where my family begged for help I'd never give. Melissa worried, but I assured her this was temporary, just until I stabilized. "I'm not spiraling," I lied. "I'm transforming." The distinction felt important, even if I couldn't articulate why. 2 weeks later, James Chin delivered a report that exceeded my darkest expectations. Emma's life was a house of cards built on quicksand, and she'd just inherited a mansion she couldn't possibly maintain. My parents had signed their own financial death warrant out of desperation for a grandchild that might never materialize. And Marcus? He specialized in exactly this kind of elder financial abuse, with a trail of victims throughout California. "Your sister owes almost $200,000 in gambling debts," James explained, sliding photos across his desk. "Online poker, sports betting, some shadier underground games. She's been running from collectors for 2 years. That's why she came back. She needed a safe house. The pregnancy story is bullshit, by the way. Medical records show an IUD insertion 6 months ago." He paused, studying my face. "You want me to keep digging?" I smiled for the first time since the betrayal, and James actually leaned back. Dig until you hit bedrock, I said. Then dig some more. I want everything. Every lie, every debt, every skeleton. Money's no object. It was a lie. Money was very much an object, but I'd figure it out. Some things were worth any price, and destroying the people who destroyed me definitely qualified. James Chin worked with the efficiency of someone who understood revenge as both art and science. Within a month, he'd assembled a dossier that painted my family in colors darker than my worst assumptions. Emma's debts were just the tip of a very dirty iceberg. She'd left a trail of destruction across 3 states, bounced checks, maxed credit cards in other people's names, even a warrant in Nevada for check fraud she'd dodged by fleeing jurisdiction. Your sister's been living under aliases, James explained during one of our meetings, spreading documents like tarot cards foretelling doom. Emma Martinez, Emma Michaels, Emanuela Marquez, she's got at least 4 identities we've found. Each one has its own credit history, its own debts, its own victims. He showed me photos from social media accounts I'd never seen, Emma living lavishly while creditors hunted her other names. The gambling addiction ran deeper than casual online poker. She'd been photographed at underground games in Chinatown, the kind where debts were collected in blood rather than courts. The men she owed weren't patient types who accepted payment plans. She's got maybe 3 months before they find her at that house, James estimated. These aren't people who care about property laws. They'll take what they can get, however they can get it. Marcus, her supposed attorney boyfriend, was even worse. He'd been disbarred in Nevada for stealing client funds, but somehow maintained a practice in California through loopholes and technicalities. His specialty was exactly what he'd done to my parents, convincing elderly people to sign over assets to their more deserving children, taking a cut for facilitating the transfer. He had 12 complaints filed against him, but elder abuse was hard to prove when the victims were too ashamed or confused to testify. He's got a pattern, James noted. Finds the problem child, usually one with debts or legal troubles, promises the parents he'll help them reconnect. Then he isolates the parents from the responsible children, convinces them they're being taken advantage of, and facilitates the wealth transfer. He takes 30% minimum. I calculated quickly. 30% of $1 million house was his biggest score yet. But the investigation's most damning revelations concerned my parents. Their financial situation was catastrophic beyond the mortgage I'd paid. They'd been borrowing against credit cards to send Emma money, racking up $40,000 in debt. They'd cashed out Dad's remaining 401k, Mom's teacher pension was leveraged to the maximum. Every dollar I'd freed up by paying the mortgage had gone straight to enabling Emma's destruction. They've been systematically lying to you for at least 5 years, James said, showing me bank statements he'd obtained through methods I didn't ask about. Every time they thanked you for saving them, they were actively undermining that salvation. Look here, the day you made a $60,000 bonus payment to principal, they sent Emma $15,000. They've been playing both daughters, but only paying one. The pattern was clear in devastating detail. My sacrifice hadn't just been wasted. It had been weaponized against me. Every dollar I sent home freed up money for Emma. I'd essentially been funding my own replacement, paying for the rope they'd used to hang me. The mathematical precision of their betrayal was almost admirable in its completeness. Work became my sanctuary during this period. I threw myself into deals with newfound ruthlessness, earning a reputation as someone who found every weakness, exploited every advantage. My colleagues whispered about my transformation, where once I'd been collaborative, now I was cutthroat. Where once I'd mentored juniors, now I crushed competition. The partners loved it. Profits were up 20% on my deals alone. You're on track for youngest managing director in the firm's history, my boss told me during a review. Whatever's driving you, bottle it and sell it. He had no idea my fuel was pure hatred, that every victory at work was practice for the war I was planning at home. But the promotion came with a $500,000 signing bonus, and suddenly I had resources beyond my credit cards. The investigation expanded. James hired forensic accountants who uncovered more horrors. The house had serious structural problems my parents had hidden for years rather than fix. The foundation was cracked, the roof leaked, there was mold in the walls that would cost hundreds of thousands to remediate. They knew, James said. The city's been sending notices for 3 years. They just kept paying fines instead of fixing anything. Emma had no idea what she'd inherited, a house worth maybe $200,000 after repairs, with taxes of $50,000 annually that my parents had been paying with my money. She'd won a poison prize, but didn't know it yet. The property was a ticking time bomb of expenses she couldn't afford, in a neighborhood where gentrification was pushing taxes higher each year. We also discovered Emma's pregnancy claims were just the latest in a series of manipulations. She'd claimed 3 miscarriages over the years to extract sympathy and money from our parents, each one carefully timed to correspondence with major financial needs. Medical records showed no pregnancies, no miscarriages, just the IUD insertion and regular STD treatments from her various relationships. Marcus was already planning his exit strategy. James's surveillance caught him meeting with other potential marks, older couples with property and problem children. Emma was just another score for him, and he'd ghost her the moment complications arose. He's got a place in Costa Rica, James reported. Non-extradition country. He'll run the minute things get hot, leave your sister holding the bag. The investigation revealed something else, allies I didn't know I had. Uncle Roberto, my father's brother, had been similarly burned decades ago. He'd helped with their first house, been promised partial ownership, then been cut out when they sold it. Cousins, aunts, family friends, all had stories of my parents' selective memory when it came to repaying help. I wasn't their first victim, just their biggest. Your family has a pattern going back 40 years, James concluded. They find the most responsible person, lean on them until they break, then move to the next. You lasted longer than most because you started young and earned more. But the pattern's consistent, take from the givers, give to the takers. It's almost pathological. Armed with this information, I began planning. Not just revenge, that was too simple, too emotional. I planned justice, the kind that came with compound interest. Every dollar they'd stolen would cost them 10. Every lie they'd told would be exposed. Every manipulation would be reversed. But I'd do it legally, cleanly, using the system they'd used against me. I hired the best tax attorney in California, Rebecca Singh, who specialized in gift tax issues. So you gave your parents $650,000 over 20 years, they gave your sister $1 million house, and you got nothing. She whistled low. That's textbook gift tax evasion. The IRS is going to be very interested in this family dynamic. Very interested indeed. The plan crystallized over weekly strategy sessions. We'd use the tax code, property law, and Emma's own debts against them. Everything would be legal, but devastating. You sure you want to go nuclear? Rebecca asked during one meeting. This will destroy them financially. There's no coming back from what we're planning. I thought about 20 years of sacrifice, about standing on that roof, about Emma's smirk. I want them to remember my name every day for the rest of their lives, I said. Legally, of course. Thanksgiving arrived like a gift wrapped in irony. My family always made a production of the holiday. Extended relatives, traditional Mexican dishes mixed with American classics, hours of forced gratitude around a table groaning under food I'd helped pay for. This year's invitation came through my mother's sister, who didn't know about our estrangement. I accepted with a smile that would have chilled my colleague's blood. I prepared like a general going to war. Documents copied and organized, evidence backed up digitally, even a recorder in my purse, though California required 2-party consent. Rebecca Singh had filed the necessary paperwork with the IRS the week before, but that bomb would take months to detonate. This was about psychological warfare, about planting seeds of destruction in front of an audience who'd remember. I arrived late, after everyone was seated, making an entrance in a designer dress that cost more than I'd spent on clothes in the previous 5 years combined. The room went silent. Extended family who'd heard rumors of drama stared between me and Emma, who sat at our father's right hand like the heir apparent she'd appointed herself. Her hand rested on her still flat stomach in a performance of pregnancy I now knew was pure fiction. Sarah, my aunt rose to hug me. We weren't sure you'd come. Your mother said there was some misunderstanding about the house. Misunderstanding. Such a gentle word for theft. I smiled warmly, taking my place at the table's far end, as far from my parents as possible. No misunderstanding, Aunt Rosa. Everything's perfectly clear. Shall we say grace? The prayer felt like blasphemy with my plans percolating, but I bowed my head with the rest. Around me, family chatted about mundane things, jobs, children, holiday plans. Normal families having normal conversations while my parents shot me nervous glances and Emma smirked behind her water glass. Marcus wasn't present, already distancing himself from the disaster he'd helped create. I waited until the meal was well underway, conversations flowing with wine and comfort. Then I stood, raising my glass. I'd like to make a toast, I announced. To family. To the bonds that tie us together through thick and thin. To loyalty, sacrifice, and unconditional love. Glasses raised around the table, people murmuring agreement. And to honesty, I continued. Which is why I need to share some wonderful news about the family home. My parents went rigid. Emma's hand tightened on her glass. But the extended family leaned in, interested. The house was legendary in our family, great-grandfather's legacy, the symbol of our American dream. As you all know, the house faced foreclosure in 2008. What you might not know is that I personally paid the entire mortgage. $650,000 over 20 years. Murmurs of surprise, impressed looks. My parents relaxed slightly, thinking I was seeking recognition. Every bonus, every raise, every extra shift went to saving our family legacy. I lived in a studio apartment, gave up career opportunities, lost relationships, destroyed my health. But family comes first, right? Nods around the table. Emma shifted uncomfortably. Which is why I'm sure you'll all be as surprised as I was to learn that our parents gave the house to Emma last month. The silence was deafening. Forks stopped moving. Wine glasses paused mid-sip. That's right. 20 years of my sacrifice, and they handed it to the daughter who hasn't been home in 5 years. Fascinating interpretation of fairness, don't you think? Sarah, this isn't the place my father started, but I cut him off with a look that could have stripped paint. Oh, I think this is exactly the place. Family gatherings are for sharing news, aren't they? Like how Emma owes $200,000 in gambling debts to some very dangerous people. Or how she's been using fake identities to run up credit card debt. Or how the pregnancy she's claiming is medically impossible given her current birth control situation. Emma's face went white then red. You're lying, she sputtered. You're just jealous because Mom and Dad love me more. The admission hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Our mother gasped. Several relatives exchanged knowing looks. Thank you for confirming what we all knew, I said calmly. But I'm not done with my toast. I pulled out my phone, displaying photos James had provided. This is Emma at an underground casino in Chinatown last month. This is the warrant for her arrest in Nevada for check fraud. These are the 3 different IDs she's been using. And this, I swiped to the final image, is the IUD insertion record from 6 months ago. Interesting prenatal care, wouldn't you say? The room exploded. Aunts demanding explanations, uncles shouting about family honor, cousins recording everything on their phones. Emma tried to run, but I'd strategically sat her between 2 linebacker-sized relatives. My parents sat frozen, watching their carefully constructed narrative collapse in real time. This was just the appetizer. But wait, there's more, I continued, voice cutting through the chaos. The house our parents so generously gave Emma? It needs $300,000 in repairs. The foundation is cracked, there's toxic mold, the city's been issuing fines for 3 years. Oh, and the property taxes Emma can't pay? $50,000 a year and rising. Congratulations, sister. You won the lottery of disasters. My father found his voice. You have no right to air family business like this. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Family business. I laughed. You mean like taking $650,000 from one daughter to give to another? That family business? Or did you mean the $40,000 in credit card debt you've accumulated sending money to Emma while I paid your mortgage? Aunt Rosa, the matriarch of our extended family, stood slowly. At 75, she commanded respect through presence alone. Roberto told me something like this happened before, she said quietly. 40 years ago, you promised him equity in your first house. He helped with the down payment, did all the repairs. Then you sold it and kept everything. I defended you then. I was wrong. The relatives began sharing stories, a chorus of small betrayals and broken promises. My parents shrank with each revelation, their pattern of using and discarding family members laid bare. Emma tried to defend them herself, spinning tales that contradicted each other within sentences. The more she talked, the deeper she dug the hole. I filed reports with the IRS about the gift tax implications, I announced when the stories wound down. Turns out giving one child a $1 million house while taking money from another has serious tax consequences. The penalties and interest should be fascinating. Oh, and Emma? Those gambling debts? The people looking for you have your new address. Happy housewarming. I stood to leave, gathering my coat with practiced calm. One more thing, I added, turning back to the table. I've been promoted to managing director. Youngest in firm history. My signing bonus was $500,000. I'm buying a house in Pacific Heights. Cash. You're not invited to the housewarming. Happy Thanksgiving. The exit was perfect until my mother caught me at the door. How could you? She wept. How could you destroy your family like this? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. I didn't destroy anything, I said gently. I just showed everyone what was already broken. You destroyed our family 20 years ago when you decided I was worth less than Emma. I'm just returning the favor. Outside, I sat in my new Tesla, hands shaking with adrenaline. My phone exploded with texts from cousins, aunts, family members I hadn't spoken to in years. Some offered support, others condemnation, most just expressed shock. I turned off the phone and drove home, knowing the real fireworks were just beginning. Thanksgiving was just the opening salvo. The war was far from over. The IRS moved faster than expected. By January, my parents received notice of a comprehensive audit focusing on substantial undeclared gifts and potential tax evasion. The agent assigned to their case, Patricia Nguyen, was known for her thoroughness and complete lack of sympathy for sob stories. Rebecca Singh kept me updated with barely concealed glee. They're looking at 20 years of returns, she reported. Every dollar you gave them, every dollar they gave Emma. The penalties alone will be catastrophic. Emma's world imploded with spectacular efficiency. The gambling creditors found her within 3 weeks of my Thanksgiving announcement. Security cameras from neighbors captured men in black SUVs visiting the house at odd hours. Emma called me 17 times one night, leaving increasingly hysterical voicemails about how I'd ruined her life, how I needed to fix this, how family was supposed to protect each other. I listened to each one while sipping champagne in my new Pacific Heights home. The house itself began its final betrayal. Winter rains found every weakness in the failing roof, water cascading into rooms I'd helped paint as a child. The mold, no longer hidden, bloomed across walls like toxic flowers. The foundation crack widened, causing doors to stick and windows to jam. City inspectors, alerted by concerned neighbors after my Thanksgiving revelations, issued condemnation warnings. Emma had inherited a money pit she couldn't afford to fix or sell. Marcus vanished like morning fog, taking with him the last of Emma's delusions. She showed up at my office in February, security alerting me to a distraught woman in the lobby. I watched her on the cameras, disheveled, thin, the designer clothes replaced by thrift store finds. Part of me, some vestigial organ of sisterly affection, twitched. Then I remembered her smirk, her "I'm good at living," and told security to remove her. My career ascended as my family descended. The managing director position came with responsibilities I handled like breathing, complex international deals, teams of analysts, direct client relationships worth billions. My reputation as someone who found every angle, exploited every advantage, preceded me into boardrooms. The Terminator, Younger analysts called me, not entirely with affection. I didn't care. Affection was for people who hadn't been betrayed by everyone they loved. The family fractures spread like cracks in glass. My parents, facing mounting tax bills and fines, begged relatives for help. But Thanksgiving had poisoned that well. Uncle Roberto led the charge in refusing aid, producing documents from 40 years of broken promises. "You taught us family helps family," he told my father. "But you also taught us you're not family. Family doesn't steal from each other." By March, they'd lost everything. The IRS seized their bank accounts for unpaid taxes. The city condemned and demolished the house when they couldn't afford remediation. Their credit cards maxed out, Social Security garnished, they moved into a shelter downtown. Emma, pregnant for real this time from a one-night stand, lived in her car until that was repossessed. The family legacy, built over generations, destroyed in months. I received updates through James Chin, who'd become something of a friend through our collaboration. "Your mother was seen at the food bank on Geary," he reported one afternoon. "Your father's been trying to get day labor work, but he's 70 and sick." Emma's been spotted at various shelters, usually kicked out for causing problems. Each update was a verse in the song of justice I'd orchestrated. Then came the diagnosis. Dad's heart, weakened by years of stress and poor diet, finally gave serious warning. The mild attack from years earlier was just the overture. This was full cardiac failure requiring surgery he couldn't afford. The hospital called me as next of kin, despite my explicit instructions to remove me from all records. "We have your father here," the voice said. "He's asking for you. Says he needs to apologize before surgery." I sat with that information for 3 days. Melissa advised forgiveness for my own peace. Rebecca Singh warned about potential legal complications if I appeared to accept responsibility. Other friends split between let him rot and be the bigger person. In the end, curiosity won. I wanted to hear what apology could possibly exist for 20 years of theft and betrayal. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and despair. Dad looked 20 years older than his 70 years, gray-skinned and hollow. Seeing me, tears leaked from eyes clouded with medication and regret. "Sarah," he whispered. "My brilliant girl. What did we do to you?" The question seemed genuine, as if he truly didn't understand the mathematics of cruelty they'd calculated for decades. "You chose," I said simply. "Every day for 20 years, you chose Emma over me. You chose the easy child over the responsible one. You chose the taker over the giver. You chose wrong, and now you're living with that choice. Did you think I'd forgive you because you're dying? Did you think a deathbed apology erases 20 years? He closed his eyes, more tears escaping. "We thought we were balancing things. You were so strong, so capable. Emma was fragile, needed us more. We thought you'd understand. We thought there'd be time to make it right." The delusion was breathtaking. They'd stolen my youth, my health, my future, and thought time would heal that wound without treatment. "Emma wasn't fragile," I corrected. "She was manipulative. You weren't balancing anything, you were enabling her and using me. And the only thing I understand is that I never had parents. I had employers who paid me in lies instead of money. Tell me, what exactly were you planning to make right? When? After I'd given you everything." Mom appeared in the doorway, aged beyond recognition. Seeing her at the food bank had been abstract knowledge. This was visceral. My mother in donated clothes, hands shaking, the woman who'd once stood proud at PTA meetings now broken by choices she'd made with full knowledge. "Sarah, please," she began, but I held up a hand. 20 years of please had gotten me nowhere. "The house is gone," I stated. "The money's gone. Emma's gone, probably in Los Angeles, running new scams under new names. You have nothing left to give her, so now you want me back? Now I'm worth something to you?" The answer is no. Whatever surgery costs, whatever you need, the answer is no. I'm not your retirement plan. I'm not your nurse. I'm not your daughter. I'm just someone who used to know you. Dad's monitors beeped faster, stress affecting his heart rate. Mom rushed to his side, comforting him with touches that once comforted me. "How can you be so cruel?" she asked. "We're your parents. We made mistakes, but we love you. Doesn't that count for anything?" The plea might have worked on the old Sarah, the one who believed love meant sacrifice. But they'd killed her. Love isn't what you feel, I explained patiently, as if to children. Love is what you do. And what you did was use me, lie to me, and steal from me. What you're feeling now, that's regret for consequences, not love for me. If you loved me, you would have acted like it sometime in the last 20 years. One of those times when I was hospitalized from exhaustion. One of those times when I cried about losing another relationship. Any of those times. I left them there, Mom sobbing over Dad's bed, machines beeping reproach for choices that led here. In the elevator, I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not regret, just the hollow echo of finality. Some bridges, once burned, illuminated truths better left in darkness. But darkness was where they'd left me, so darkness was what they'd receive in return. A text from Emma waited in my car. Heard you are at hospital. Daddy needs you, don't be selfish. The irony of Emma calling anyone selfish should have been funny. Instead, it was just pathetic. She'd attached a Cash App request for $5,000 for medical expenses. I screenshot it for my records, evidence of continued harassment, and blocked the number. She'd make new ones, but I'd block those too. Spring arrived in San Francisco with unusual warmth, cherry blossoms blooming like hope I was finally learning to feel. My Pacific Heights home, purchased with cash that would have once gone to the mortgage, featured floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. Every morning, I watched sunrise paint the water gold and thought about how different life looked from heights earned rather than inherited. Dad survived the surgery barely. A charity covered basic costs, but recovery was slow and painful. Mom sent letters through relatives, pages of justification mixed with pleas for reconciliation. I read the first few, then started a fire in my beautiful marble fireplace and burned them all. The past didn't deserve space in my present. Their words were ash before they could wound. Emma's story concluded predictably. Arrested in Los Angeles for check fraud, she served 3 months before release to a halfway house. The baby, born premature and addicted to substances I hadn't known she used, was placed in foster care. She posted on Facebook about injustice, about family abandoning her, about struggles no one understood. Her followers, not knowing the history, offered sympathy that fed her eternal victim narrative. My success accelerated beyond even my ambitious projections. The Singapore office wanted me to lead their expansion, offering a package that included housing, staff, and authority I'd dreamed of since business school. But first, I had something to build in San Francisco. Using connections from 2 decades in finance, I established the Moving Forward Foundation, support services for adults escaping financial abuse by family members. The foundation's first event drew unexpected crowds. Turns out, family financial abuse was more common than anyone discussed publicly. Children drained by parents, siblings stolen from, spouses secretly funding their birth families while their own children went without. We provided legal resources, therapy referrals, and most importantly, validation that their pain was real, their anger justified, their decision to walk away courageous rather than cruel. Family isn't sacred when it's poisonous, I told the assembled group, sharing my story publicly for the first time beyond that Thanksgiving disaster. You don't owe anyone your destruction. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and them is refuse to enable their dysfunction anymore. The speech went viral, shared by thousands who'd never had permission to prioritize themselves over toxic relatives. Letters poured in, gratitude from people who'd thought they were alone, anger from those who believed family bonds superseded personal well-being, requests for help from those still trapped. We hired staff, expanded services, became a movement I'd never intended but desperately needed to exist. 6 months after the hospital visit, I encountered Mom at Whole Foods. She was working as a cashier, movement slow but steady, wearing the green apron over clothes that fit better than her shelter days. Seeing me, she froze mid-scan, hand trembling over organic kale I was purchasing for a dinner party she'd never attend. We stared at each other across vegetables and 20 years of wreckage. "I won't make a scene," she said quietly. I just want you to know we're sorry. Really sorry. Not for consequences, for choices. For hurting you. For failing you. For being the parents who taught you love meant pain. Her eyes, my eyes reflected back, held something I'd never seen before. Understanding, maybe. Or just exhaustion too complete for pretense. I hope that's true, I replied, meaning it. I hope you learn from this for your own peace. But it changes nothing between us. Some wounds cut too deep to heal. Some bridges burn too hot to rebuild. I wish you well, but I wish you well from distance. Please respect that. She nodded, completing my transaction with professional courtesy, and I walked away from my mother one last time. The Singapore position started in fall. I sold the Pacific Heights house to a tech executive, making a 30% profit in 6 months. The foundation would continue under excellent leadership, my story rippling outward to help others escape their own 20-year prisons. Friends threw goodbye parties where I actually laughed, unforced and free. Even dated a bit, learning slowly that not everyone who claimed to love me was lying. My last day in San Francisco, I drove past the empty lot where our family home once stood. The city had razed it, leaving bare earth waiting for new development. Someone would build there, create new memories untainted by the rot that had infected our foundation. Maybe they'd be happy. Maybe they'd know that family meant support, not sacrifice. Maybe their children would be valued equally. I sat in my car, engine running, remembering the little girl who'd promised to save this house. She'd kept that promise at a cost that nearly killed her. But from her ashes rose someone stronger, someone who understood that love without reciprocity was just elaborate self-harm. That family treating you worse than strangers wasn't family worth keeping. That sometimes the greatest gift toxic people give you is showing their truth clearly enough to set you free. A text from Melissa interrupted my reverie. Singapore crew is taking you out tonight. Wear the red dress. Leave the past in the past. Time to celebrate your future. She was right, as usual. I'd spent enough time mourning who I'd been, who they'd been, who we'd never be together. Time to embrace who I was becoming. Successful, independent, free from the chains I'd helped forge link by painful link. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with another text. Emma, from yet another number. You destroyed everything. Happy now? I didn't respond, just blocked and deleted. But the answer was yes. Not happy I'd had to destroy it, but happy it was destroyed. Happy I'd survived. Happy I'd learned that sometimes destruction was just another word for liberation. That sometimes the family you choose. Friends like Melissa, colleagues who respected me, strangers who shared similar wounds, was worth more than blood that only flowed one direction. My name is Sarah Chin. I'm 35 years old, managing director at one of the world's top investment firms, founder of a foundation helping abuse survivors, and heading to Singapore to build something entirely my own. I paid $650,000 for the most expensive education imaginable. Learning that real love doesn't require you to destroy yourself, that healthy relationships involve give and take, that family is defined by loyalty, not DNA. They gave the house to Emma, but they gave me something priceless, freedom from the delusion that I needed their approval, their love, their anything. They taught me I was worth less than nothing to them, which taught me I was worth everything to myself. And that's the plot twist they never saw coming. By taking everything, they gave me the gift of giving myself permission to take everything back. The plane to Singapore leaves in 6 hours. A new city, new challenges, new opportunities to build without ghosts haunting every corner. The foundation will help others escape. My success will prove that survival isn't just possible but profitable. And somewhere in San Francisco, 2 elderly people and 1 perpetual child will live with choices that chose themselves through decades of deliberate action. I hope they find peace. I hope they find growth. I hope they find whatever they need to become better people. But I hope they find it without me. Because I've found something better than revenge, indifference. Something better than their love, self-respect. Something better than family that shares only blood. A life that shares joy, success, and reciprocal care with people who earn their place in it. The cherry blossoms are blooming in Singapore too, I'm told. Different variety, same beauty, same promise of renewal after winter's death. I'll photograph them for my new apartment, frame them as a reminder that some endings are really beginnings, that some destructions are really constructions, that sometimes the most toxic people in your life do you the favor of revealing themselves so clearly you can't pretend anymore. My parents said, "We know you paid the $650,000 mortgage, but we're giving the house to your sister." And in doing so, they gave me the keys to a life worth infinitely more than any house. A life where love means support, not sacrifice. Where family shows up, not just takes. Where 20 years of pain transforms into wisdom that helps others escape their own prisons. They meant to destroy me. Instead, they set me free. And that freedom? That's worth everything I paid and more. So here's my question for you. What toxic gift is someone in your life giving you right now? What betrayal might actually be your liberation in disguise? What sacrifice are you making that's really just self-destruction with a prettier name? If my story resonated with you, if you felt that crushing weight of family expectation or one-sided loyalty, remember this. You deserve reciprocal love. You deserve to be valued. You deserve to choose yourself. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Like if you understand that family isn't always family. Subscribe for more real stories about breaking free from toxic patterns. And comment below, what's your toxic gift that turned into freedom? Let's build a community of people who chose themselves and live to thrive, not just survive. Because that's what real family does. They lift each other up, equally, without keeping score of who deserves it more. Thank you for witnessing my journey from sacrifice to self-worth. May you find the courage to demand reciprocal love, the strength to walk away from those who don't provide it, and the wisdom to know that sometimes the greatest gift toxic people can give you is showing you exactly who they are, so you can choose to be something better. Until next time, choose yourself. You're worth it.